Hello, and welcome to our session of self-care sessions on the concept and topic of cultivating joy at home, at work, and beyond. I am Kelly Yunkins, and I am a clinical program supervisor at Valley Counseling Services in Warren, Ohio. And we are bringing these sessions to our staff in effort to provide intentional time and space for some self-care. And I've picked some topics that I think will be good for all of us to spend some time and energy space in. And today is no different. So today is cultivating joy. And I'm going to walk us through why I chose this, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and then we're going to get to it. So cultivating joy at home, at work, and beyond. I picked this topic for December because it's no mystery that December and Christmas is often many people's most wonderful time of the year. It can be a very magical season for some and a time of giving and compassion and joy for many people. And so it felt like a good topic to bring into December. It also felt right because for many people also they experience the opposite end of that, or maybe not necessarily the opposite, but they may experience this season maybe not as joyful as others, perhaps because they're in a season of grief or loss themselves. Maybe this time of year no longer brings joy to them, or maybe no longer brings joy at the maximum capacity that maybe they used to experience in their life before. And so it may be a season of sadness for them. And so whichever it ends up being for you, it still is worthwhile to tap into what is joyful for us, so that whether we want to maximize the joy that we feel and experience in our life, or we're struggling to find and experience and feel the joy, this time and space is definitely for you. So before we get into the areas that we want to think about when it comes to joy, I want us first to get settled, and then we're going to take some breaths to get our energy settled and focused and present with one another today around the concept of joy. And then we're going to work our way through some exercises. So I encourage you to, if you want to, as you work through the exercises, maybe have a pen and paper if you feel like writing some things down or drawing some things out or just taking a couple of notes. I encourage you to have that nearby as we get started into our time together. So let's first get physically settled. I invite you to get your body into a comfortable position. Wherever you are that you are listening to this cast, please get yourself into a comfortable position. I invite you to do that. Perhaps maybe you're going to get into a certain position in your chair. Maybe you're going to lay down on the floor. Maybe you're going to lay on your office floor. I don't know. Maybe you're going to sit in your favorite chair or grab a favorite blanket, whatever that may be. But get yourself physically comfortable as we spend at least the next 20 minutes together. Next, we're going to take 5 purposeful breaths so that we can transition into this space together to be mindful and present. As you take these breaths, I encourage you to maybe consider placing your hands on a surface or putting them together comfortably. Maybe consider closing your eyes if you feel safe enough or comfortable in doing so. As we inhale and exhale 5 times, winding ourselves down into being present as we move forward in talking about joy. Okay. So let's talk about the practice of cultivating joy. And let's start with why this is important and how this can be beneficial to you. So, science supports a regular practice of gratitude and cultivating joy as having positive mental, emotional, and physiological impacts on your well being. Now, I don't claim to be a neuroscience expert, so I won't get into the particulars, but the real short gist is basically I understand that when you cultivate a regular practice of gratitude and cultivating joy, you actually get hits of dopamine and serotonin. And how nice is that? So, like, if you don't have a practice of gratitude or cultivating joy in your life, you're missing out. So, the exciting thing is why not? Why not tap into those feel good neurotransmitters and experiences to really help ourselves improve our well being? So, that's a nice thought. So it's more than just being mindful and present of things in our life that we can feel grateful for, and cultivating a sense of joy in our life at home and work beyond. It has some positive physiological effects on us as well, and that's really exciting because we all know, or at least know by now, that stress, especially chronic stress, really has a debilitating effect on not only our longevity, but our well-being, and specifically, our organs and our organ systems. And so we want to hopefully you want to engage in as many wellness practices as you can so that you can prolong your life, live a good life, be happy and healthy as much as you possibly can. So today we're going to work our way through some exercises that will hopefully excite you into creating or maintaining your practice of gratitude or cultivating joy in your life, which hopefully should have a positive impact on you. So let's work through it. I'm glad you all are here and listening today. So we're going to start first with the area of home in our life. And while for some people, home may be a natural space of joy and perhaps what's in it or who's in it, or maybe who's not in it, can be a concept of joy. For others, maybe home is not a place of joy. I want to encourage us all, whether we feel positively about home or maybe some other more negative emotion about home, I want us to be as open-minded as possible as we walk through this exercise, thinking about home. Our first level of this is going to think about home as we know it now and try to think and feel and identify as many things as possible about home that bring us joy. And if you struggle in identifying what brings you joy about home, that's okay, because there's a second part to this. But first, we're going to start with what about home brings us joy? And I want to give you some context before I send you off into thinking and feeling your way through this, is that it could be home on a macro level, like what is it, what is it about your home that you love? But it could also be very micro, and maybe you have a favorite chair at your house, or maybe there are certain people or fur creatures that are at your home that bring you great joy. Maybe there's something that you do at home that brings you small joy or even big joy. Things like maybe you love lying in your bed with clean sheets, or opening the windows when you're at home on a sunshiny day. I really want to encourage you to think as creatively and as honestly as possible with yourself as you think about home and what brings you joy. So go ahead and take a couple minutes to jot down, draw out, or just think or feel your way through home and what brings you joy. Okay, awesome. So hopefully that was fun or insightful of what all you might find to be joyful when you think about home. I'm going now, this would be the part where if you were in a session where other participants are, we could interact and share some of the things that, if you feel free in doing so, some of the things that you find joyful about your home. So, for example, I'm going to share something about home that wasn't always true for me, but is true now. And so, home is something that brings me great joy now, having a home, being a homeowner, because there was a time in my life where I didn't have that joy. Specifically, there was a point in time in my life where I wasn't sure if home ownership ever was going to be possible. Hashtag student loans. But seriously, having a home and being a homeowner now for several years in my life now is a great source of joy for me. And I would say that would be like on a more like macro kind of level. But more specifically, when I think about being in my home, simple things like I like to light candles at my house. If you ever come to my house or came to my house, you would know that I'm almost always burning a candle. It's just something that I find joyful and when I'm at home. I like to cook at my house, and I love doing yard work, love cutting the grass. That's always fun to me. And that brings me great joy when I think about my home. I also, some people might cringe at this, but I love to clean. I find the act of cleaning pretty therapeutic, and I enjoy it greatly. Even though, if you know anything about me, I have 3 small children now, and they they sometimes take the joy out of cleaning sometimes. But I really do find cleaning, especially cleaning my own house, quite joyful. So whatever joy looks like at home for you, congratulations. Continue to be mindful of all the things that bring you joy about home and about your home life. If you struggled to find things about home that bring you joy, as you move forward beyond this time together today, I would encourage you and invite you to run through this exercise a bit differently and think about what would bring you joy about home or your home life if you don't have it. And so thinking about and feeling your way through of what would create a sense of joy for you when you think about home or your home life. Basically, what's missing? What do you hope to manifest about your home life that you hope in the future could be a source of joy? Maybe you wish to come home one day to a puppy or a cat or some type of animal that you think would bring you great joy. Think about how home could bring you a sense of joy, and really take some intentional time and space in thinking that through, identifying what would bring you joy, feel your way through that. And hopefully, as life moves forward, you'll find yourself bringing those into your life, so that home becomes a source of joy. So we're going to move into the second area that we're going to talk about today, and that is work. And some of you might laugh and think, work, joyful, maybe that's not immediately what comes to mind, but for many people, work is a source of great joy. I know the work that I do, I find quite joyful. And if we don't, it's up to us to identify, well, what would bring us great joy when it comes to work? So now that's the second part of these exercises, is if there's a challenge in identifying what brings joy, the way to cultivate it is to identify, well, what's missing? What would bring you joy? What would you like to experience? What would bring you great joy? But first, we're going to walk through work in identifying, thinking and feeling our way through what does bring us great joy at work, or even just joy. And when you think about work, before we step into this exercise, work can be anything. It can be your regular Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of work when you think about this. Or maybe you engage in some other type of work that you would like to focus on when you walk through this exercise. So maybe you have a hobby or a side hustle, or, some other concept of work that you do that you can focus on as you work through this exercise. So whatever work is to you, I want you to hold that in your mind. And now we're going to spend some time thinking and feeling, what about work brings us joy? Feel free to write down as many things that you can think of, maybe draw them out, maybe visualize them, whatever it is that works for you. Let's take some time in thinking about work and what brings us joy. Okay. That should be fun, thinking about work and what brings us joy at work. Hopefully you were able to come up with some good stuff about work. When I think about work, it's really a fascinating concept, considering we spend most of our life working or sleeping in this modern day age. And so being able to cultivate joy at work is something I think is quite important for your overall health and well-being. If you're going to do something that's called work, do what you love. It brings great joy. It has a positive impact on your well-being. And it ranges. Maybe you love your boss, maybe you, and not like that, but maybe you love your coworkers. You really have a great sense of camaraderie and enjoy, working together as a team. Or maybe you love your specific role in what you do, and it brings joy in creating a product or a service or helping somebody in some way. Maybe you are a problem solver and you get a lot of joy out of helping people solve their problems, or sharing information with people, coordinating together, seeing a big vision come to life and bringing on great people to execute a vision. Maybe you have a lot of joy at work when you have the satisfaction of all your tasks being completed, or something that you created that is now being used by others. Whatever that may be, I hope that you were able to identify the things at work or when you're engaging in work that bring you great joy. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you struggle in identifying what brings you joy about work, it would be useful for you to take some time and space and reflecting on, well, what would bring you great joy? And hopefully it's not something as trite as, well, I hope I showed up to work one day and somebody gave me like $5 million. Would that bring you great joy? Sure, maybe in the moment, but ultimately, like, well, what are you going to do with your life? And how will that bring you joy? Or how will you bring joy to others, maybe at your work? So if you struggled in identifying how work can be a source of joy for you, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on what's missing. Maybe like what would you find joyful about work or your work life? And who knows from there, who knows where that will lead for you as you think about and feel your way through of what brings you joy, what could bring you joy. Now we're going to move into the last area, and it's and beyond, cultivating joy at home, at work, and beyond. Beyond is anything that you could come up with of however it is that you spend your time and energy in whatever space or location or just element of your life that's beyond. So maybe you might be thinking about how to cultivate joy in your community. Or maybe you might think about the ways in which you might cultivate joy, maybe on a social media platform. Maybe you're going to think about, how to cultivate joy for future generations to come. Whatever that may be, whatever the beyond may be for you. I think it's worthwhile for us to sit and reflect on that, of what is beyond for us. Maybe you're thinking, no, not beyond as in like outer space, although, maybe teaming up with Elon Musk and joining outer space would be a great source of joy for you. I don't know. But when we think about cultivating joy in ourselves, in our lives, beyond home and work, what would that look like? How are we already cultivating joy beyond our home and our work life? Maybe you volunteer somewhere. Maybe you create things and you sell them, and it brings great joy to your clients or your customers. A former colleague of mine knits baby doll clothes that are just phenomenal. And it is not only a source of joy for her to create those things, but she experiences even more joy when customers purchase them and then she gets to see them, her work on people she doesn't even know, they're baby dolls. So when we think about this, it's how are we cultivating joy in our life beyond ourselves, beyond home, beyond work? Is there something that we do? Is there something that we say? Is there something that we participate in? Something that we give to the world or other human beings or another cause that not only is a source of joy for you, but also maybe to others? Think about how you might want to cultivate joy beyond yourself, beyond your day-to-day life. And I think this is important because we want to think about maybe our legacy. What will we leave behind during this trip around the earth? How might we leave joy with others? So if you've never thought about that before, I invite you to do so as you move beyond your this time and space together today, to think about how you cultivate joy now. What is it that you do or you say or that you participate in? Maybe how you might cultivate joy in the future, beyond home and beyond work. And really sit with that. How can you and what you do cultivate joy for others or for something, some entity? Because joy is good. There's enough grief and suffering, as we all know, on any given day. And so if there's some small way that we can cultivate joy beyond ourselves, wouldn't that be really something? So in the spirit of the holiday season, it brings me great joy to create this time and space for us together to think and feel our way through the concept of joy, where it shows up in our life, maybe where it's missing. But I hope it gives you a sense of inspiration and hope that you can cultivate joy within yourself and in your life around you and impact others in your life positively by cultivating joy. It starts with us, inside us, and it can totally move beyond us if we spend some time and energy thinking about where our source of joy comes from and how to spread it throughout the world. So, in this, again, the spirit of the season, I hope and my wish for you is that there is joy in your life, that you are mindful of it, that you honor it. And my wish is for your joy to continue to grow and be a source of light for others. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.